Alright, so this video is mainly going to talk about the prologue of The Wife of Bath's tale. I mean, the tale is good, but I think that the stuff that we touch on from the actual tale will be more about what the tale says about the wife of Bath herself, which we know in the story she reveals that her real name is Allison. So there's your Jeopardy question response for the video. Her name is Allison. I guess the main thing I'll be curious about in seeing what you think in the discussion boards, and I can't really figure out my answer, it seems to shift. This portrait that Chaucer has written about women, as far as if you look at the Wife of Bath as Chaucer's representation of the personality, the inner workings of a woman, I can't tell if it's an empowering or if it's a detrimental portrait as far as the image of women, if it does good to it or if it does bad. And maybe it's both. Anyways, I'm curious what you make of it, of the discussion board. The personality traits that the Wife of Bath shows may be empowering. She has quite a few discussions where she talks about the double standard between men and women. She's obviously intelligent. It's interesting that the word choice, we may call her based on a patriarchal society as far as male authority looking at authority of women and being intimidated or scared by it. I want to say that she's manipulative, but I mean the same qualities that we call manipulative in her, who's to say I wouldn't call these qualities if it were a male character? Who's to say I wouldn't call it cunning or something that's positive? Yet I see it here in the Wife of Bath's character, and my immediate gut response is, oh, she's manipulative. So I just think it's interesting that the portrait we see here, there are things I like about the portrait, and there are things that I wonder are problematic as far as, is she setting women back rather than pushing their image forward? This will kind of go sequentially as far as kind of the arguments she makes, the several arguments she makes in the prologue. She starts off talking about, as far as virginity, she's answering here a pretty long list. Chaucer, in the character he creates in The Wife of Bath, is actually addressing a pretty long history of anti-feminist propaganda, written by men, of course, but this would be basically propaganda talking about the vice of women, the vice of sex, even in marriage. But this would be basically literature that promoted that true Christianity should be one of virginity. And she addresses this saying that sexual virginity is not a commandment, but a choice. She says that the apostle admits that he has no commandment given to him by God about chastity. And she says that the apostle could not make up any commandment where one is not given by God. So instead he just says, look, I can't speak about this. She says that there may be advice that sexual purity is good, but she says that advice is not the same as commandment. And it's not. You can give someone advice and still not be surprised when they don't follow it. She even admits that it's good advice. There's several places she talks about individuals that it's the right choice for them to be virgins. She talks about Jesus, and she seems to admit very freely that chastity and virginity is great, but she also admits just as freely it's not for her. She doesn't want to follow that lifestyle. She likes sex. We'll come back to that. She talks a little bit about, well, she talks pretty directly about genitalia, and this is here again, she makes a good argument. She says basically that genitalia, why argue that it's either for pleasure or either for function when she says it's obviously, why can't it be both? Genitalia is functional as far as, she of course talks about urine and waste, but also she says it's functional for pleasure as well. And she also talks about that the procreation process that God designed, she argues, why would God design a process that requires something he commanded against? I mean, sexual reproduction, continuation of the species, it seems an obvious argument that you can't really reproduce without having sex. So her basic argument is that, why would God command something opposed to what his perfect design, and she does mention that if it's God's design, it's going to be perfect in nature. Why would he command something that his own design, which is perfect, would require a breaking of that commandment? Well, I mean, that's good logic. Um, here's a summary of a couple of lines, 155 through 159, that just kind of reinforces that the wife of Bath is a woman who enjoys sex. She enjoys her sexuality. And we'll talk about this several times, but this line basically, these lines, 155 through 159, she's talking about her instrument. We know her instrument. She's talking about, her vagina. There we go. She says, in my wifehood, I will use my instrument as freely as my Maker gave it to me. So it's kind of interesting here. She's saying it was a gift, so I will enjoy it as freely as it was given to me. I didn't purchase it. Therefore, why should I have to pay for it? Not only does she enjoy sex, she's also very aware that it empowers her as a woman. She knows very clearly that sex equals power over the male body. She says in line 163, she discusses that intercourse gives her control of her lover's body, almost like she's a puppet master pulling strings. Sex for her is a way of getting what she wants, but she also enjoys it. When you look at the marriage history of the wife, you have to understand that marriage for her, it's a job. I mean, this is how she's supporting herself. There's no job listed for the wife of Bath other than she's a wife. She's been married 5 times, and she admits very freely in line 45 that she's used her 5 husbands for both, excuse me, for both sex and money. She says she's made the best of their purse, both of their purses. The purse between their legs, pardon, and also the purse, their financial purse. But she has done the best with both roles of her husband. She's taken both gifts, I guess. One thing I do want to look at, though, it's the wife of Bath's description of herself and her 3 first husbands. And the first husband she has, she argues that these are good men. She says of her 5 marriages, 3 have been to good men and 2 to not good men. I think it's interesting when you look at the marriages that mean the most to her, the marriages that she's been the most involved in, it seems to be the ones with the men that she argues were the 2 bad husbands. So I want to talk about this a little bit. As far as the first 3 husbands she marries, these are while she's still very young. She does make a point to say that the first 3 husbands are very old. In fact, she implies that, she doesn't even imply it. She says that they have trouble performing. How does she describe it? There's several times she describes sex as a man's debt. Yeah, a husband's debt to his wife. She describes sex as a way, this goes back to she enjoys it. She says this is a way for a husband to pay his debt to his wife. So here, I mean, if the husband is giving this as payment to the wife, that obviously implies that she's going to enjoy the payment. Anyway, she implies that the first 3 husbands are so old that she makes them work every night. As far as the payment that they give to her, she kind of laughs at how hard she makes them work to make that payment. You know, we know now, of course, with we've got things around that with age, but time period this is in. This would be the young woman and the older man, and the frailties of age that may creep in. First 3 husbands, she makes a point of talking about how they give their love freely to her. And the interesting thing here is that she doesn't appreciate that love. She says that, why would she work for something that's freely given to her? She says she only does good to them if it serves her purpose.